Louise LEHZEN, born to a modest Lutheran pastor, found herself landing a royal gig, governess to a little girl named Alexandrina Victoria. Fast forward a few years to 1827, and guess who's suddenly second in line to the British throne? Yep, Victoria. And while everyone else was getting tangled in the power-grabbing mess known as the Kensington system, a controlling scheme run by Victoria's own mother, the Duchess of Kent, and her shady partner in crime, Sir John Conroy, LEHZEN was Victoria's knight in sensible, protective armor. LEHZEN wasn't here for the nonsense. She actively encouraged young Victoria to be strong, independent, and suspicious of the Duchess and Conroy's puppet strings, causing a rather frosty atmosphere within the royal household. By the time Victoria took the throne in 1837, LEHZEN had cemented herself as the Queen's unofficial private secretary and, let's be real, as the Queen's emotional lifeline. How close were they? Well, while Queen Victoria lovingly set LEHZEN up in apartments right next to her own, her mother was relegated to rooms on the far opposite side of the palace. LEHZEN was more than just a governess. She became the mother figure Victoria truly adored, the anti-duchess, if you will. But then, along came Prince Albert in 1840. Spoiler alert, LEHZEN and Albert? Not exactly besties. LEHZEN was not a fan of this dashing young husband. And Albert? Well, he thought LEHZEN was a bit much. He had some pretty solid reasons, too. Things really heated up in 1841 when the royal drama kicked into high gear. The 14-month-old Princess Royal, Victoria's first child, fell ill. LEHZEN, still in charge of the royal household, including the nursery staff and doctor appointments, brought in Dr. James Clark. Albert, ever the concerned father, objected to LEHZEN's choices, but his protests went ignored. Dr. Clark, believing it was a minor ailment, prescribed the poor baby calomel, a mercury-laced cure-all, and laudanum. That's right, mercury for a toddler. As it turned out, the real issue wasn't an illness at all. The precocious princess was likely just expressing her strong feelings about the changes in the royal nursery, where everything was shifting due to the arrival of her younger brother. Ah, sibling drama. Albert was furious, blaming LEHZEN for the entire situation. And, honestly, who could blame him? Not only was his daughter dosed with mercury, but he also believed LEHZEN's grip on Victoria was pulling the Queen away from both him and her own mother. The tension in the royal household reached boiling point, with Albert throwing down the gauntlet, LEHZEN or him. Sadly for LEHZEN, Victoria chose her prince, and the woman who had been her closest confidant was dismissed. Now here's the extra bit of scandal. Rumor has it that LEHZEN wasn't just against Albert because of a little royal nursery hiccup. Oh no, the gossip was that LEHZEN had opposed their marriage from the very beginning. Why, you ask? Because she envisioned Victoria as the second coming of Queen Elizabeth I, a virgin queen, okay? A ruler who didn't need any man, especially not Albert, getting in her way. And considering how often LEHZEN thwarted Albert's will in the running of the household, that theory isn't entirely far-fetched. So, did LEHZEN really dream of making Victoria the next independent, man-free monarch? Or was it just a royal gossip session gone wild? Either way, LEHZEN's influence on the Queen was undeniable, and while she may not have gotten her virgin queen, she definitely helped mold one of the most powerful women in British history.